Welcome to EDU World Space.
All right, here we are working on calculating cost of living using the CPI and changes in prices and quantity between 2 years. And we're given 3 goods: tennis balls, golf balls, and bottles of Gatorade. We also have their prices and quantities for 2020 and 2021. What we are first asked to do in part A is determine the percentage change in the price of each good. So let's start with our tennis balls here. To determine the change in price, we're going to take our price in 2021, which we see is $2, and we're going to subtract from it our price in 2020, which is 2, and divide it all by our price in 2020. So this gives us a 0% change in our price of tennis balls. Let's do the same thing for our golf balls. Taking our price in 2021 of 6 minus our 2020 price of $4, dividing it by 4, that gives us a 50% change in price in golf balls. And doing the same thing now for Gatorade. We had a price of $2 in 2021 minus our $1 in 2020, dividing it by 1, this gives us a 100% change in price of bottles of Gatorade. Now suppose we want to find, for part B, the percent change in overall price level. And to do this, we're going to calculate it similarly to the CPI calculation. So we first need to determine our cost of our market baskets in each year. So to do that for 2020, all we need to do is take our prices and quantities of each of these. So let's start with tennis balls, where we have a price of 2. We'll multiply that by its quantity of 100. And that gets added to the product of each of these other products, or each of the other goods, prices and quantities. So for golf balls, we have $4 times its quantity of 100. And for Gatorade, we've got its price of $1 times its quantity of 200. Let's simplify this. This gives us 200 plus 400 plus 200, which gives us a total price of this market, or the cost of this market basket, which is equal to 800. We're going to want to remember that. We'll need that in a little while. But let's now calculate this cost of our 2021 market basket, which we calculate the same way we did for 2020, but now we're taking into account our 2021 prices and quantities. So we have 2 times 100 for golf balls, 6 times 100 for our, the first one was our tennis, sorry, this is for our golf balls. Now, plus for our bottles of Gatorade, we have 2 times 200. Let's simplify this, which gives us 200 plus 600 plus 400. Gives us a cost of our market basket equal to 1,200. Now, to calculate this percent change in the overall price level, we're going to take our 1,200, which was our price in 2021, minus our 2020 price level, and divide it by our 2020 price level as well. This gives us a percent change in price here, which is equal to 50%. Right, because this here would give us 400 divided by 800, 50%. All right, now let's move on to part C, and let's suppose that we learned that the size of our Gatorade bottles increased from 2020 to 2021. How might this affect our calculations of this CPI, or this percent change in overall price level, and thus our interpretation of the inflation rate? Well, if the size of our Gatorade bottles were increased, we should then lower our estimation of the inflation rate, right? Because the value of this bottle of Gatorade is greater now in 2021 than it was in 2020. So instead of making a comparison based upon just the number of Gatorade bottles, maybe we should be making the comparison based upon a per ounce of Gatorade bottles, per ounce of Gatorade. That'll give us a more accurate interpretation of the changes that occurred there, instead of looking at just quantity and price. So if the size of the Gatorade bottle were to have increased between 2020 and 2021, we should lower our estimation of the inflation rate to adjust for that increase in size. Now, let's also take a look at part D, and suppose that Gatorade now introduced new flavors instead. So how should we change our estimation of the inflation rate here? Well, once again, we should lower our estimation of that because by introducing new flavors, we are enhancing the consumer's well-being. The consumer now has more possibility of gaining greater utility from the Gatorade that it consumes, and so we would be changing the quality here of this Gatorade, which means that, again, our typical calculation of the CPI doesn't take that into account, but we as economists should do that. So we would adjust it by lowering that inflation rate by whatever increase in utility was gained by the consumer due to this introduction of new flavors.